Welcome to the City of Littleton Planning Board. I'd like to get started tonight. We have one hearing. We'll start with roll call.
Is there any changes to the agenda?
Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, or
I get ahead of myself. See, my agenda is on my computer, which I can't get. Sorry. Thank you. There are no changes to the agenda.
Okay. Board Member Bertline. Board Member Bolt.
Here.
Board Member Duzan.
Here.
Board Member Elrod. Board Member Graham.
Here.
Board Member Moore.
Here.
Board Member Rudnicki.
Here.
And Board Member Samuelson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Right. I want to review the minutes from the July 8th hearing. Are there any changes, comments, or do I have a motion?
Hearing no comment, motion to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
Board Member Rudnicki moved to approve the minutes. Board Member Moore seconded. Please your votes. Pass. Okay, at this time, we have scheduled and unscheduled appearances. I don't believe we have any scheduled appearances. So we open the floor up to anyone who would like to address the planning board on any topic other than the hearing that we're about to talk about tonight. Yes. Come to the podium, state your name, and you'll have 4 minutes. And address.
I'm going to ask to use the projector.
Can we get the projector on, please?
My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live at 5402 South Nevada Street in District 1. I've been involved with Littleton City government for about 2.5 years, and I'm very disappointed in how the city is serving the public and the future of the city. So I'm going to talk tonight about required city management for planning, public information, and decision making. And I call it required because this is minimum. This is minimum performance for running a good city. So this is basic project management. To succeed, projects identify, integrate, and track 4 things: scope, schedule, budget, and risks. Scope is the objectives, the products, or the outcomes that we want. Schedule is what it's going to cost. Schedule is when it's going to happen, and budget is what it's going to cost. And risks, you got to identify the risks. Not everything is going to go perfect. We can tell what things are more tenuous than others. We can identify mitigations for the ones we know, and we include those mitigations in schedule and budget. And that's how we manage projects well. These are documented in project plan, and the project proceeds in phases: formulation, implementation, and operations. So during formulation, you define feasible concepts and high-level design. And for the city, that's in a comprehensive plan. It is integrated. It integrates the schedule, the budget, the outcomes we want, and the risk. It identifies the path about how to get to what we want and what milestones we have to hit along the way. It includes special focus plans like our corridor studies, and this is a known discipline with education, training, data, and tools. This is not impossible. There's lots of cities in America, and we're not the first, 10th, 100th to encounter the situation we're in now. It's a lot less expensive to plan than to do it wrong and have to do it over. During implementation, you do detailed design and build. You meet your milestones or you fix what you're doing. And this is when a city gets building applications and permits and rezoning applications. You assess those based on the comp plan studies, and the impacts have to be analyzed based on city and neighborhood impacts. During operations, the city functions and people use it. Owners, residents, visitors. Code is enforced, and the plan is tracked and updated when conditions change and at certain milestones. So as far as rezoning requests, the city has to supply its own independent city-level impact assessment. Why is this? The applicant is going to supply what they want and what they expect to get out of a project, and they're going to give a good sales job, and it's going to be on their terms. But someone has to identify the impacts for the city on the future and on the residents, on the owners, on the people who will use the city in the future. So Littleton's already zoned, and the comprehensive plan should document what that zoning looks like into the future. For rezoning requests, the city staff has to analyze and present impacts on housing, the distribution of occupants, incomes, and locations in the neighborhood and the city, police, fire, schools, water, sewer, drainage, traffic, streets, retail, commerce, employment, city budget projections, and schedules. And I haven't seen that ever happen. So, last time I spoke, I showed a smaller view of this for Broadstone. This is the city zoning map.
Need to wrap it up?
And it shows 20-some intersections. Traffic is just an example, but I think it's one that all of us can relate to. There should be delay times identified for all of those currently and projected at 5-year centers to 2030 and 10-year centers to 2070. If you're not getting that, planning board, you need to ask for it. Your decisions, the goodness of your decisions depends on this information.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Unscheduled items not related to the hearing. Okay, moving on. We now are going to have a public hearing for the Meadows at Platte Valley General Plan Development Plan, Fourth Amendment, rezoning from PDC to PDR at 7620 South Platte Canyon Road. First, we'll hear from the city, and then after the city has presented their staff report, we'll hear from the applicant, where they have an opportunity to present their application, and then at that time, we'll open it up to public comment. So if you haven't signed up for the sign-up sheet to speak, you can do so at this time prior to opening it up to the public. And if anybody walks in or hasn't done it, I'll ask if anybody wants to speak if you haven't signed up. So you have the floor.
I'm sorry, can we get the screen turned on down here?
Yeah, is the monitor on?
Down here.
I think you have to turn it on with the remote. There we go. Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Board members and audience. Ernie Rose, Community Development Department, Senior Planner. I'm here to present the Meadows at Platte Valley rezoning and general plan amendments. I'd like to start by submitting a list of exhibits.
Okay.
The list of exhibits includes proof of posting, proof of publication, and the public hearing roster. The applicant, Evergreen Development, is requesting to rezone a portion of the property located at 7620 South Platte Canyon Road. The property is 16.14 acres and is currently zoned Planned Development Commercial, or PDC. The proposal is to rezone 13.14 acres to PDR, Planned Development Residential. 3 acres of PD zoning will remain for future commercial development. The Meadows at Platte Valley PD plan was approved in 1985. The PD plan area is west of South Platte Park. It is bordered by South Platte Canyon Road on the west, Overlook subdivision on the east, Polar Ridge Farm subdivision on the north, and South Platte Reservoir on the south. This kind of goes over that for you. You see the reservoir on the south, Overlook to the east, and South Platte Canyon. And then the Meadowbrook is in part of this PD plan. This is a site plan. The clubhouse is going to be located at the main entrance, which is at South Wolf Street and West Mineral Avenue. The additional community gathering spaces will be located within the site's green belts. Pedestrian circulation within the proposed development will connect residential entrances to those recreational amenities and to adjacent commercial uses and neighboring properties. West Mineral Avenue and South Platte Canyon Road frontages will have a 9-foot detached sidewalk that will connect to regional bike trails. Vehicular access to the site will be from West Mineral Avenue and South Platte Canyon Road. The main access, again, is on West Mineral Avenue and Wolf. The secondary access, or there's a secondary access for the 3 commercial lots located right there off of South Platte Canyon Road. The applicant, in this case, proposed the signal, which you see on the illustrative site plan there, and the submitted traffic study did not support the signal because it does not, this project does not generate the required number of traffic warrants. So the applicant was asked to contact the neighboring property to consider a connection to the apartment complex and the overlook to the, which is located east of the property. The proposed development will include 10 buildings with 250 multifamily dwelling units. The building mixes include 2- and 3-story buildings with detached garages. The prairie-style architecture emphasizes horizontal proportions and overhanging eaves. The specific PD amendments that relate to this case, this chart reads up from the bottom. The dwelling units, the specific things that are amended are the permitted uses, setbacks, allowable commercial square footage, parking ratio, and unobstructed open space. The development is to allow for the proposed residential development. That's what these amendments relate directly to. The justification for rezoning is either based on consistency with the comp plan or changing condition. and it also has to meet the intent of the plan development. In this case, the applicant has chosen changed or changing conditions. The first change in condition is the area included, the main area around the properties are 3 PD plans, which are known as the Meadowbrook, or the Meadows at Platte Valley, which is in tonight's case, the Polo Reserve Ridge Farm, which is across the street, and the Overlook. As you can see, all the proposed number of dwelling units or the approved were not realized, and there is a difference of 1,695 fewer units. This is the basis, or part of the basis of the applicant's case for changed conditions. The density in the area will not support a 16-acre commercial site, and the 13 acres is what will be supported with this type density in the area. This aerial map shows some of the recreational amenities around, and it also shows a condition that exists that shows that there won't be any additional development around the site. 1/3 of the area within 1 mile or a mile radius is in South Platte Reservoir, Eagle Watch Lake, and Cooley Lake. The applicant submitted a detailed commercial analysis which showed the other commercial areas or commercial properties close to this one that are experiencing a considerable number of vacancies, and it further explained how retailers are not interested in the property because it is located between several existing and potential anchored shopping centers, and the most prominent being the shopping center possibility at the Inser property, which would be on South Santa Fe. This information provides insight as to why this property has not developed commercially, and it also questions any future commercial viability. They also submitted a residential study that showed the areas of growth is because of the residential market study identifies the regional job market, employment, population growth, real estate trends, and younger demographic as key influences driving the need for multifamily dwelling units. The study also noted that the occupancies around the site are at Alta Aspen Grove is at 94%, and the Pinnacle at Mountain Gate is at 96%. The request meets the planned development intent in that infill development, which will encourage the economic viability of a reduced commercial site. It provides housing that is in demand within the original PD plan. It includes a mix of uses that were contemplated on the original PD plan. The site takes advantage of the existing topography, and the residential character is compatible in design and use. The required infrastructure is in place, and the site is supported by adequate utilities and transportation network. The applicant's case for rezoning is justified by changed conditions in the area. The intent of the planned development district also requires some consistency with the comp plan, and in this case, it provides a variety of housing stock. It links Littleton as a gateway, and it is an attractive and healthful living environment for present and future Littleton residents. With that, staff is supporting this. It recommends approval of the proposed rezoning, and with that, I'll take any questions.
Why don't we ask just some quick questions, because we're going to have a time at the end of all the testimony. for more detailed questions, but does anybody have anything quick?
Go ahead. I have a question with consideration to the schools, and how have we looked at, do we have enough room to accommodate this many more residents in the schools that they'll be filtering into?
I believe the applicant's information addressed that, and I'll let them speak to that,
Okay.
if that's all right.
Sure.
Kurt?
At the time of the rezoning in 1985, was there a planned interchange at 470 and Platte Canyon? Do you have any idea?
I'm not aware if there was or not. What I read, it didn't speak to that.
And at that time, was all of the area south of Mineral, all that residential area?
Well, in 1985, Mineral was not a street yet. It was just being planned,
Or was
so
all the zoning done at the same time from
around the same time, in the 80s.
the river all the way over to Platte Canyon?
Correct.
Who owns or has responsibility for the maintenance, upkeep, and repair of the intersection at Platte Canyon and Mineral?
That's within the city.
The city of Littleton?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. I'll ask more questions later.
I have a quick one. So the change in density of what was originally planned and then what was developed, do you have any history of why that changed?
Just in reading through the minutes, it's just what came before different planning boards or planning commissioners at the time, and that was what was brought forth. There was really no reasoning. It was just how they were developed. It definitely went large lot with Polo over there where it's very big, and I think that just continued throughout.
Okay, so from a timing, the original PD plan was in the 80s, but then the development actually happened in the 90s?
Correct.
And I have the same question. Could you go back to the chart showing the, that one? And explain it one more time.
Well, the way this chart reads is that if you look at the meadows at Platte Valley, there was an approved residential number of units at 1,176. What's actually been built is 590, and that density you go all the way over is 7.5, but the density that was approved is 15.1. That's the density listed on the PD plan. And as you move down the chart, same thing for Polo Reserve, it was 915, but 57. So there was a big difference there. That's probably the largest difference, where they had anticipated a lot of multifamily. In reading through the minutes, it appears that that's what the idea was for this area. It was even, it came after the comp plan, so it's not even in a defined comp plan area because it was annexed in 85, the comp plan's from 1981. So, but it's clear the planning board anticipated a higher number of units.
Thank you.
I have one question.
After you would let the applicant come up.
The overlook, the streets in Overlook private or are they city-owned streets?
I believe they're city-owned streets, to my knowledge. I don't know if, I think, yeah, they're city-owned streets.
They are city-owned?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, the applicant come up and present their testimony.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jeff Wickstrom. I'm with Evergreen Development. I live just down Mineral in Carroll, so I'm a neighbor to you guys. And I drive by this site every day, believe it or not. I'd like to introduce you to our team before we get started. I've got with me Tyler Carlson, who is with Evergreen. He's our retail expert. And along with Tyler is Brian Slaughter of Sullivan Hayes, our broker. We also have from Kephart, Chris Grady and Adam Cantor. And Kephart is our architects and our land planners. From Harris Coker Smith, Billy Harris is here. Harris Coker is our engineer. And from Norris Design, Jared Carlin is here. And Jared is our landscape planner and planner. Also, I'd like to thank the staff for all the time and effort they've put into this deal. It's been a long process, and we really appreciate everybody's help. So Evergreen Development has been around for about 38 years. We've developed 450 projects in the Southwest United States, in Colorado, Arizona, and California. And primarily, those projects have been retail projects. So Evergreen is a very, very strong retail developer. If you look at the commercial experience, you can see a lot of our partners for which we are preferred developers. That means that Evergreen has been selected by these various companies to build homes for them specifically, as opposed to just going out to the public. Three of the names that you might recognize in there are Walgreens, for which we've done almost 300 developments in the U.S., Sprouts, and Primrose. And actually, for Sprouts, we opened a brand new store in Denver at Colfax and Garfield just last week. So the point is we're quite experienced in the retail market. Our residential experience in Denver includes over 49 years of combined residential experience, and we've built over 10,000 units. I want to give you an idea of some of our product, and so starting in the left-hand corner and moving clockwise around the building, around the slide, the first two pictures in the top left and center are a property called Alexan Castle Pines, which I did. To the right of that, top right corner, is Lincoln Square Lofts, which is located in Lone Tree. Bottom right is the Sprouts that we opened last week. And if you look really close, my buddy Tyler's standing in the front row in the gray suit. Is swinging around is the Alexan City Center, which is in Inglewood. You guys might be familiar with it. It's the old Cinderella City site. And bottom left is Vantage Point, which is located in Broomfield. So if we look at where the site is located, I'm going to kind of zoom into the property and kind of give you a sense of this thing. But the site is located in the far southwest corner of the city, at the southeast intersection of Platte and Mineral. As you come a little bit closer into the site, Ernie's talked about some of these, but you can see the South Platte Reservoir, which is important, the Cooley Lake, and we're about a mile to the west of Aspen Grove Shopping Center. When you get right down to the property, I think it's important to look at who our offsetting users are, and so you can kind of get a sense of what the community is doing in that area. To the north is the Meadowbrook subdivision, and there are about 94, I believe, single-family homes located there. On the east and the south sides of the property is the Pinnacle at Mountain Gate. That's an apartment community with almost 500 units that was developed about 14 years ago. Across Platte to the west, there are three uses. The Gardens at Columbine Assisted Living Facility is across the street. To the north of that is a Conoco station, and on the northwest corner is the Columbine Manor Park. You've seen our site plan, our conceptual site plan, and I'm going to, in a few minutes, we're going to have Chris Grady come up from Kephart, and he can talk through the architecture and the amenities and that kind of thing. But I just want to briefly touch on this and mention that we have, in concept, 3 retail pads in the northwest corner of the property. Those are oriented on mineral, and we're trying to keep some retail on this site. The clubhouse is immediately to the right or to the east of the retail pads at the main entrance at the corner of Wolf and Mineral. And our application includes us installing a stoplight on that intersection, not just for our benefit, but also for the benefit of the folks in Meadowbrook as they try to get in and out of Mineral on high traffic days. In addition to that, our concept is 250 residential units, and I'm going to let Chris talk about the details in a few minutes. So this is a really interesting site historically, and several of you guys have asked some good questions after the staff report. But it's been held by the same owner since 1985. It was annexed into the property in 1985, the same year. And the original parcel included the Meadows neighborhood, or the Meadowbrook neighborhood across the street, and the Pinnacle. So these three parcels were one PUD at the time. The landowners paid property taxes on this land since 1985. This year's taxes were $40,000. And in addition to that, they've contributed almost $3 million in special improvement district fees over the past 25 years. Those fees were what allowed this land to become part of the city. It got the mineral bridge built, and it also created the water and sand district. So without the current landowners, this probably wouldn't be part of the Littleton city. The parcel in question has been zoned PDC since 1985, and the landowner has not been able to secure a retail tenant since then. So when we began working on this property, we knew, anytime you have a rezone, there's always questions from the neighborhood. So we made a really pretty big effort, I think, to try to get out in front of the community and seek questions and comments. Some of the things that we've done include mailing over 5,000 letters and cards. Those cards had our web address on them, and they generally invited people to one of 3 public meetings that we've had. We did host 3 public meetings. There's a little picture there on the right at Hudson Gardens, and the last one was at Panera in Aspen Grove. We created I've gone personally door to door to the approximately 40 owners who front on our property, and then of course the other side of the street. So all of those people, I've probably talked to 30 of them myself, and invited those folks to individual coffees beyond that. Our website has really gotten a lot of activity. We've had hits from over 1,200 different people. So I think the postcards did a good job of getting the message out. People know that it's here. We've been trying very hard to communicate what we're looking at and ask for comments along the way. And finally, to date, I think we've received 16 letters of support, which the city has, and 4 letters of objection. We've also gotten a few emails with questions, but which sort of fall into neither category. So as Ernie said, we're asking to rezone this property because the conditions have changed and are changing. And there are really 4 things that make a difference on this property. Ernie has alluded to the decrease in the approved density of the properties, the adjacent properties. As he pointed out, there were almost 2,400 units that were approved for those 4 properties, and only 688 of them have been built. That doesn't leave enough rooftops to support retail. The other thing that's happened is the traffic patterns have changed really significantly since 1985. As you know, Mineral Road didn't exist at that time and has come through. In 1985, the Ken Carroll neighborhood was being developed, and so all the traffic from the west was coming east on Ken Carroll, which turns into Mineral, and dead-ending at Platt. So it made sense that with a lot of retail and some traffic, with a lot of residential around the property and some traffic, this might be a viable retail site. The third thing is what we'll call changing conditions. Before Mineral was built, before there were all the throughways to connect to Santa Fe, every intersection around this site had a retail center built on it. So Pierce at Ken Carroll, Pierce at Coal Mine, Platt at Bellevue, and Bowles all have retail centers. And none of them they're all struggling. The average occupancy, in fact, is about 20% in those things. Finally, the fourth point is that the surrounding tracts now have developed and they're mature. And if you think about what uses fit well with the existing properties, a lower intensity use is maybe called for on this site. So let's think about retail a little bit more. And what I've provided here is a 1 mile radius picture from the property. Ernie pointed out that South Platte River is to the south of us, Cooney Reservoir to the east. And when you look at neighborhood retail, and neighborhood retail is defined loosely as a grocery-anchored shopping center. So if you were to think of King Soopers with the strip centers adjacent to it. A site like that requires about 20,000 people in a 1 mile radius, and it serves that little radius. In our site, we only have 6,700 people that live within a mile of this property. Part of the reason that we don't have 20,000 people within a mile of the property are, as Ernie pointed out, that the area shown in white, which is the Meadows, Polar Reserve, Sanctuary, and the Outlook, were originally zoned for 2,400 units. And those 2,400 units were primarily multifamily units when they were initially zoned. Instead of 2,400 units, today there are 688 units, less than a third of what was originally intended. Now, while it wasn't zoned for multifamily at the time, the South Platte Reservoir didn't exist, and it represented 200 acres of potential residential, prime residential land with overlooks to the south. Density is a condition that has changed and is preventing this property from becoming successfully developed as a neighborhood retail center. This slide actually shows the conditions of the area in 1985 compared to today. There are a couple of interesting issues here. First, and we've talked about these quite a bit, is the amount of land that could have been developed as residential units, including the 202 acres of the South Platte Reservoir, and the number of residential units that could have been built there. The second point leads into my next issue of change, which is traffic. As you can see, in 1985, Mineral didn't connect to Santa Fe. All the traffic coming from the west had to take a left, had to turn north or right at Platte. As I said before, Ken Carroll was being developed, so there was a bunch of traffic coming east-west, and that made for potentially a good place for retail. But today, when we look at how the traffic has developed in the city, you find that there are two large north-south corridors, Wadsworth and Santa Fe. At Aspen Grove, Santa Fe conveys almost a little over 50,000 cars a day. And at Southwest Plaza, King Carroll conveys about the same amount of traffic. Now, contrary to that, South Platte and Pierce carry less than 10,000 cars a day. I believe Platte is 9,000 and Pierce is actually only 2,000 car count a day. So if traffic's important to retail, it's clear that this site is not a good retail site from a traffic standpoint. The third point that we talked about was changing conditions. As I mentioned before, before Mineral was connected to Santa Fe, every corner in the area was developed with retail. Today, most of the centers are struggling, and the occupancy rates are high, with an average of about 20%. The tenants who occupy these properties are typically mom-and-pop stores, and they don't generate sales tax revenues. They tend to be hair salons, nail salons, karate schools, music schools, and doctors, and that's what you find in these kind of sites. These pictures are of all those intersections, and you can kind of see the condition and the amount of vacancy that's out there. So retail centers and secondary locations are struggling, indicating that retail may not be the best use of this site. Changing conditions. So again, the area around the property is already developed. It's mature. And as we look at the residential community that we're proposing is much less intense of a use than what the current zoning calls for. There's less traffic, there's less noise, there's no parking lot covering the entire site with 24-hour lighting, no 24-hour semi-deliveries, and because we have much more green space on the property, you actually get enhanced water quality because we have less impermeable surface. So multifamily housing provides a number of community benefits. It creates a greater mix of housing choices than there may be in the area. For reference, in a 3-mile radius of the site, only one apartment community has been built in the last 10 years. In a 4-mile radius, there are 2. So there's not been a lot of new product that's been delivered to the market to supply the growth that's taking place here. Apartments become a feeder for new residents and for the children of Littleton. Not everybody started buying a house. You got to have a place to live, and a lot of people rent. So this becomes a good intermediate place to go. Apartments create housing options for employees of the local businesses. Again, when you look at some of the, particularly in the retail world, a less expensive property is a good solution. Residents spend their money in the city. That does generate tax revenues, whether it's at Aspen Grove or at the local shopping center. Additionally, there's 2 other thoughts here, is that Mineral and Platte is a gateway, and this is out of the comp plan. We're not arguing the comp plan, but it is a gateway to the city. And as people come to Littleton from the west, one of the things that we've agreed to do is to add a Welcome to Littleton sign on the corner. We have some pictures later on. It doesn't show the sign very well, but it does show how much nicer the intersection will be as it's developed compared to a vacant lot. We've also agreed to put a traffic light at Wolf and Mineral to help alleviate any congestion that already exists, as well as any more that our property creates. So at this point, I'd like to invite Chris Grady to come up. Chris is with Kephart Architects, and he's going to take you through the architecture and the amenities. I'll come back up and we'll take some questions. Thank you very much.
Good evening, members of Planning Board. My name is Chris Grady. I'm with Kephart Community Planning Architecture, 2555 Walnut, Denver 80205. Why Kephart? Evergreen has included us as part of the team because we are residential design experts with a special emphasis on multifamily. Kephart has designed over 400,000 living units over the last 40 years. We've received numerous awards for multifamily housing design, including our most recent recognition as 2012 Architect of the Year by Builder Developer Magazine. Kephart is committed to excellence in design. We seek to work closely with our clients and all the municipalities we're working in, and we have a commitment to a high level of service to the communities that we do serve. So what are some of the land planning and design goals at the Meadows? Number 1, to create a great walkable neighborhood with a central pedestrian spine road connected by two major entries. Design a land plan and buildings that live on open space. To provide a series of gathering areas and amenities. And another goal is to design buildings with scale and character compatible with the surrounding community. Just some of the site plan features. The buildings that you see on the site plan are 18 and 28 unit buildings. They are 2- and 3-story, 3-story toward the middle, and they kind of wedding cake down in the ends to 2-story. The varying building size and the 2- and 3-story massing really helps break up the site and some of the visual to all those buildings. The buildings do include attached garages. And all of the residences are organized around internally situated parking, or what we call motor courts. These parking areas include open parking and detached garages, in addition to the attached garages that are part of the main buildings. The buildings and the landscape help screen these motor courts from view from public areas. These courts do provide all of the resident and guest parking, and the parking does meet municipal requirements. The buildings do reinforce important edges, particularly along Mineral and Platte Canyon, and also to the existing multifamily to the south. We've included well-designed four-sided architecture so that a view from any portion of the outside neighborhood, you get a view of some high-quality architectural character. The plan will include a central spine or a pedestrian street which connects to Platte Canyon and Mineral. The street will be well landscaped with soft and hardscape. There will be a sidewalk on both sides and pockets of additional guest parking. This plan is our amenity slide, and just I thought I'd take the opportunity to circle in red some of the primary and secondary amenity areas on the site. There are active and passive amenities which will be situated along an internal spine road and throughout the neighborhood. Just to kind of give you an idea of some of the character, we're including a bark park, some gathering areas with seating, open lawn area near the clubhouse, and again, small neighborhood niches along the pedestrian street and between some of the buildings. Just a bit of clubhouse character. We're introducing a resort-style clubhouse amenity, 5,000 square feet with leasing, fitness, and recreation. The outdoor area will include a pool, spa, barbecue areas, and this will connect to an open lawn. Some of the architectural features that I've included on the left side to kind of compare some character. There are some single-family homes on the upper two small images, and then the multifamily to the south of us, just to kind of show you that our intent to have compatibility with massing and character to the adjacent residences. We're featuring high-quality four-sided design, again, 2- and 3-story, a wedding cake design. You're seeing the garage side, and we take the opportunity to pull those garages back so they don't dominate the elevation. We have well-articulated and expressed entries, well-composed massing and roof line breaks, and then all buildings will feature exterior decks and patios in variety and material and color. All of the design elements and intended character are outlined in the GPDP document, ensuring quality of the residences. You're just looking at a concept view of the clubhouse from the pool deck. Again, key architectural components include massing, detailing, and color, which will complement that of the primary residential buildings. We're including a perspective image showing a main entry at Mineral looking south on Wolf. Again, in our GPDP document, we do include commercial design guidelines which will ensure compatibility with the future residences. This is a character shot of the corner of Mineral and Platte Canyon. This is I would say, the portal into Littleton. So in essence, we really are looking to create a great neighborhood that we in the city of Littleton can be proud of, and we're really excited for this opportunity. We do have our team here to answer questions about the concept land plan and the architectural vision, which is included as part of the GPDP document. This concludes my presentation, and I'll turn it over to Jeff for some final remarks.
Thanks, Chris. So I just want to reiterate kind of what it is that we're looking for today is we would like to get to rezone the property from PDC to PDR, and that's because the conditions around the property have changed. The rezone will permit the mix of compatible and of both commercial and residential to the site. It'll improve the gateway of the city. We're adding a traffic light, and it'll provide both jobs for people building the apartments as well as homes for people that live in town. And the conditions that have changed for are there is less density, the traffic is no longer here, the secondary retail around us is struggling, and the neighborhood has matured. And so having a large lit parking lot and the traffic that comes with retail may not be the best use for this site. I thank you for your time, and I would appreciate any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do you have the roster? So this time I want to open it up to public comment. After public comment, then we'll have general discussion, questions for the applicant and the staff. So the way this works is, if you're on the list, I'll call you up. When you approach the podium, state your name and your address, please. I'll start the timer. The white light comes on. You have 4 minutes. The red light will come on right before your time is up. I'm also keeping a stopwatch timer just to double check. If you run long, I'll just politely remind you your time's running long. Okay, we'll start with Ruth McGee. And you want to speak?
Good evening. My name is Ruth McGee. I live in the Pinnacle at Mountain Gate Apartments, adjacent to this proposed property. 16 acres evidently wants to be developed, and I am severely opposed to this. My use for that area is a park. I know that that would have to be negotiated with South Suburban, but we do not need any more people or cars in that 16 area corner. I would like to beautify that corner, not bring in more cars, more people, more asphalt, more heat, and more lights, stop lights. And that can only be done with a park on that corner. I want a place where I can sit and relax. A lake maybe like in Stern Park. Flowers, benches, places for families, not more asphalt, concrete, and development. I just feel that there's just too much going on that corner. Pinnacle at Mountain Gate has 500 apartments, more than 1,000 people. Jeff and his density chart up there never addressed all the people that are in the apartment building. He just talks about the multifamily, the homes in the area, Overlook and so forth. We have to look at how many people are already there. All the dogs, all the bicycles, 250 more apartments, all that congestion being brought in. Again, it's absurd. And I can't believe that this is even being considered for that piece of land. I visualize that piece of land as I come home from the west as a nice park, trees, not more buildings, and that kind of development. It is just ridiculous. So I am very much against that area being developed into more apartments and commercial buildings. Thank you. Appreciate your attention.
Thank you. I think my timer has to run out before it resets. Or else your time's up the minute I turn it on. Yeah. So ignore the light for now. I'll just go like this. You have 1 minute. Brenda LeCamp. Did I say that right? Oh, you're not going to speak. Okay. You are not in favor of the project. Marilee Sprout? And you're not going to speak. Okay. Ted Sprout?
Same, not in favor, not speaking.
Okay. Did I get your name right? Sprout? Spreed. Michelle Miller.
evening. My name is Michelle Miller. I live at 7664 South Platteview Drive in the Overlook. I was wondering if I could ask a question of the board members as to how many have actually driven down Mineral during the morning or in the evening. All right. So just to let you know, I'm against the rezoning proposal. It is not supported by adequate transportation, I believe, trying to get out of our neighborhood in either the morning or get back in the evening. Sometimes you can have traffic backed all the way up from Santa Fe to Platte Canyon. And also along Platte Canyon going out to Bowles, especially when school is in session, that road can be backed up in either direction completely. So I don't really agree with their transportation statistics. I definitely believe that you need a light either at Utica. I don't want the traffic from the apartments coming into our neighborhood, which is quiet and has been developed for a long time. So I think there has to be a light, and that would give relief to us trying to get out of the Overlook, especially turning left. Most of the time I have to turn right and make a U-turn, which is pretty dangerous anyway. As far as a bike lane on the sidewalk, I don't know if anyone rides bikes, but I do all the time. And a sidewalk is not a bike lane. People don't look for you on a bike on a sidewalk. In fact, if they're turning to the right, they generally don't look to the left and vice versa. So if they are going through with this development, I suggest that part of Mineral be made a bike lane because people are roaring down that road, not 45 miles an hour. It's usually way faster than that, unless they're stopped in traffic, which happens every morning and every evening. And as I'm a neighbor in the Overlook, we have a lot of people coming from the existing apartment complex that walk through our neighborhood and use a path that goes out to the lakes. And I would like to suggest, if you do decide to go ahead with this proposal, that you make a path for those apartment complex individuals to go around and through the park rather than our neighborhood. We've had a rash of robberies in our neighborhood, and I have no idea what it's related to, but it doesn't make you feel good to see a bunch of strangers walking by your house every day. So, and I don't want to give offense to anyone. I'm just saying I would like to have a path to the lakes for those individuals out their own neighborhood instead of coming through ours. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael McGee?
My name is Michael McGee. I'm also a resident of Pinnacle at Mountain Gate. Our apartment complex, which consists of 500 units, will be immediately adjacent to the proposed development. If this zoning change goes through, and therefore we will have an increased population that will bring about problems that I object to strongly and speak on in my behalf of my wife, who spoke already, and other residents of the Pinnacle complex. The addition of another 250 apartments in this area would bring about a population increase that would cause the following problems. The traffic on Mineral Avenue and Platte Canyon and Utica Drive, which goes through our complex, is already at an extremely unsafe level of both congestion and extremely high speeds. It is not patrolled well by the police department. Very unsafe. The possibility of crossing Mineral Avenue is paramount to suicide at some times during rush hour. use my notes if I may. That safety and congestion would only be intensified by the addition of another 250 apartment units immediately adjacent to ours. It would bring on a greater degree of congestion and therefore reduce safety. With no physical barrier to separate these two apartment units, there would also be an increase of noise and congestion due to, and look at me, I'm not against children and pets, but by children playing, the safety of these children in the streets that are so busy right at this point, and to some degree the sanitary conditions caused by more dogs that are walking. And believe me, I'm not against dog. I was a shelter worker for 12 years, but not everybody is diligent about picking up after their animals. I strongly suggest, therefore, that the proposed zoning change be changed. It would significantly reduce the quality of living for the existing residents in this area. I hope that the board will consider these remarks and also consider the additional population that was not considered in by the developer. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Johnson. I live at 4774 West Hinsdale Court. I've lived in Littleton for over 20 years. I am a practicing architect and familiar with good design, planning, and development. As I reviewed the very recently posted 116-page planning board document, I found myself intrigued by the arguments of the conditions have changed and the implication of everything that's changed since the 1985 zoning, and that it raises serious questions about the viability of this property as a commercial development. I agree with that. I do not believe, though, that the application and supporting analysis justifies the change to high-density housing. However, that said, I'd like to focus on the retail. I do want to say thank you to Jeff for the slides, because I believe he provides perfect fodder for this discussion. The application is completely internally contradictory as it addresses retail commercial. There's paragraph after paragraph of why this site is not a viable commercial property, and yet the developer is proposing 3 commercial sites. Is this a bone he's throwing to the city for you guys to bite? The Declaration of Justification of Rezoning outlines the reasons, as did Jeff's slideshow, and I'll hit them, I'll highlight them, not to bore you again, but the project area, I'm quoting now from the Declaration of Justification of Rezoning. Quote, the project area has evolved into high-quality residential community. It is a high-quality residential community. Retail at secondary centers are performing poorly. Lack of population within a 1-mile radius, 20,000 desired residents, and we have 6,700. Lack of traffic counts along the streets compared to other locations. Part of the Declaration of Justification says the applicant has contacted over 175 potential retail users, and most have declined this location because of traffic. High vacancy in adjacent retail centers in the immediate area. Here's a quote, commercial use is no longer compatible with this neighborhood. The large amounts of additional traffic, noise, light pollution, nighttime operations, and general aesthetics will be detrimental to the existing residential community. How is it justifiable that it doesn't work for 16 acres, but it's going to work for these 3? What is the secret sauce that's going to make these 3 commercial sites be successful in the face of all that? I'll tell you right now, they won't be. There are only a couple of sentences proposing how, quote, a bank, a coffee shop, fast food restaurant, or daycare would be an asset in mixed use. Why is 3 sites good? Later in the application letter, he talks about 5 retail sites would greatly impact the neighbors and viability of the multifamily product. The developer might be right that commercial retail is no longer viable on this site, but if that holds true for 16, it holds true for 3. This is a bad idea for the local community and the city as a whole. They might get people to bite on these pads, but their own schedule talks about 2 to 3 years of developing on them. I'm just closing. If the developer really believes in viable mixed use, I suggest they integrate these retail components to the first floor of some of their buildings so they have as much vested interest in the long-term success of retail as they do the apartments. As it stands now, they'll sell the pads and they'll forever be a problem. I love the idea of the sign, welcome to Littleton, grab a Big Mac, a six-pack, and some marijuana right here.
Thank you. Those are refraining from clapping, please. If you want to express an opinion, you can wave your hands in the air. Thank you. Taya Johnson.
Hi, my name is Taya Johnson. I live at 4774 West Hinsdale Court in Meadowbrook. I'm opposed to the project for a number of various reasons, but I'd like to address two specific items. First of all, the setbacks in building heights. There are currently no buildings along Mineral and Kincarroll that are as tall or as close to the road as this development proposes. I'm comfortable with the 50-foot maximum height needed for the apartments, but not so close to the street and so inconsistent with all of the other developments. So I would request that the developer rearrange and redesign to match the existing zoning constraints of the 50-foot setback, not more than the 35-foot building height within 125 feet of Mineral and Platte Canyon. Secondly, I am extremely concerned about the safety and the welfare of our exits at the Meadowbrook neighborhood. Trying to exit east from Wolf onto Mineral at any time of day can be a particularly daunting task right now for an experienced driver. We currently have a number of teen drivers in our neighborhood and kids that are getting their permits, including my own son, in just a couple of days. And the situation now and the risk that it imposes coming in and out right there with no light as it is, without any kind of additional retail or any other people now, is very dangerous to cars, to people, to bicyclists as you're focusing on getting in and out of the neighborhood. Mr. Rose indicated that the traffic study does not warrant a light going up at that location. I can't imagine how complicated the exit will become with the increased traffic flow with 3 new commercial locations, in addition to the significant rush hour traffic increase with several hundred new apartment dwellers. In the absence of a traffic light to assist in any way, I think that it significantly increases the complications. Just during eastbound, westbound, from Wolf onto Mineral, all those directions, I just don't think that's a viable location to add all this additional traffic. I just think the risk is great. While a traffic signal might not be justified, there are other mitigation measures that should be evaluated, including limiting the proposed new curb cuts to right in and right out only. My request that you would deny this project as it's proposed.
Thank you. Ken Paul.
Hello, everyone. My name's Ken Paul. I live at 4440 West Jameson Place in the Overlook community. I'm the president of the Overlook Community HOA. Our community sits to the east of the proposed Meadows development. We sent you, and hopefully got a chance to read, a letter expressing our concerns about addition of more foot traffic through our community with the rezoning from business to multifamily units. Because our community was not built to handle much foot traffic, there are no sidewalks. We in the Overlook community ask that reopening of the trail behind the Pinnacle Apartments be included in any rezoning. It would appear from the planning staff report recommending rezoning approval to the planning board, our concerns weren't even mentioned, let alone considered. Although, from the report I read, that if more Mineral car traffic is a problem, the Littleton planning staff have graciously offered Overlook Streets as a solution. Now, for me, the biggest issue is the foot traffic. We had a great solution before behind the Pinnacles. They reclaimed when they put the pit to the south of the Pinnacles to a reservoir. There was a pathway behind there, and it was closed off when that creek was rehabilitated. What happens now is the Pinnacle people, if they want to, and they have every right to, the South Platte Park, they enter it on foot through our neighborhood where there are no sidewalks. Now you're talking about another 250 units going through that same area. I do give the developers a lot of credit, and I met with them at one place at Hudson Gardens, and they're pushing for a traffic light. And I know that the studies indicate that it might not work. Well, it's going to be needed. You've heard us mention, all of us up here, and it's during the rush hour going in the morning and the evening, 5 days a week. You're looking at 2 to 3 hours each day. And for us, if this is approved, that group, the Pinnacle and Overlook, are going to have, for those turning westbound, it becomes suicidal. From those over in Meadowbrook wanting to turn east during those same times, it's also suicidal. I do understand the reason for the development, one, because it's not going anywhere and lasts almost 30 years. But I would, and maybe when it comes to talking about the pathway, it's beyond the rezoning application. And so Ernie and his team may not be able to address that particular piece. But you, the zoning board, have a fiduciary responsibility to step out beyond that and think about the community in general. And so before you make this decision, I would ask you to do whatever is in your power to see to it that path is open behind the Pinnacle again. They still enter our community on the south side, entering on a little bit of Littleton ground. And so it's not as if we're trying to keep people out. We're just trying to keep them off the street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carl Macio or Masco? Macio. All right. I like props.
Work.
Can we turn on the camera, please?
Oops.
Upside down.
The world is upside down. You got to flip the board.
Else we need to go upside down.
He'll zoom.
My name is Carl Massio. I live at 7472 South Utica Street in Meadowbrook Subdivision. I live in the home to the north, directly across Mineral Avenue, and this is the view out of my backyard, actually off my patio. I'm also the owner of CM Design Builders, a licensed general contractor in the city of Littleton since 1999. I have been building for sale and custom homes over the last 30 years in various municipalities in the metro area. Okay. In early '99, my wife and I decided to relocate our family back to the city of Littleton, in which my wife is a native of. Okay. We moved in from Bailey. 1 week before the Columbine tragedy, as we all remember, we put a contract on the vacant home lot. As always, I proceeded to do due diligence. I checked into the zoning, the approved land use of the subject property, and that would be viewed out of our future backyard and which would impact the livability and the future resale value. Let's see. From my past experience of doing business in other cities as a developer, properties with PUD zoning in those cities were not normally allowed to be changed. The specific building height requirements and setbacks of the property's current PUD made these impacts to our lot minimal. We purchased a lot believing that the subject property would not seriously impact our concerns. We designed our home to minimize the impact of Mineral Avenue and currently approved land use of the retail property across the street. I built our home and we moved into it in the summer of 2000. Over the past 13 years, I have seen the traffic and noise on Mineral Avenue increase, and the property across
mineral change from a well-treed native area to a vacant, overlotted, weed-infested piece of ground. It is being used as an off-leash dog park by the residents of the adjacent apartment, and every summer, as you can see, it also turns into a potential wildfire area. From this photograph, From this photograph, you can see changing the zoning, setbacks, and the building height requirements will greatly impact mine and all the homes along Mineral Avenue. In close proximity to the close proximity of large buildings along Mineral Avenue will also reflect traffic noise and amplify it to the point in which the city will probably have to mitigate it. The developer, in conversations with me, have said that they would plant trees to minimize the noise. It would take years for the trees to become large enough to maybe mitigate the problem. The proximity of the large buildings would also impact the ice and snow melting ability from the southern sun along Mineral Avenue.
30 seconds.
I'm just in closing here. I do feel the development of the property is better done sooner than later because we all do know that unknown factors of vacant property have a negative effect on our properties. As you can see from the pros and cons that I have addressed about the subject property, I am ambivalent about the rezoning. My wife and I do feel strongly, if the rezoning moves forward, that the restrictions upon the property in now approved PUD, like the building height requirements, the setbacks, open space requirements, and other restrictions stay in place for the new rezoning.
Thank you. Frederick Rupp is not in favor of the project and is not wanting to speak. Patricia Bobian is not in favor of the project but does not want to speak. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia Bobian, and I'm a resident along with my husband, John Bobian, and our young son, Liam, in Meadowbrook.
Please. Address.
Pardon?
Your address, please.
It is 7425 South Utica Street, and I see here that Board Member Graham?
Yes.
Is that a Wilder cup?
Yes, it is.
So one of my concerns, in addition to the traffic, I mean, even during non-peak hours, it takes me approximately 4 to 6 minutes to make a left-hand turn out of our development. So I think everyone has covered the concerns regarding the traffic pretty well, I think, and the noise and the congestion and just frankly, just the aesthetic going downhill. But I would like to also call attention to Wilder. One of the reasons our neighborhood is so desirable, not just because of the beautiful homes and the lovely neighbors, but we are in the Littleton School District for Wilder Elementary, which is one of the best schools in the entire state. When you're talking about high-density development across the street, all these children will then also be going to Wilder. We already have a classroom density issue as it is. So I just see that compounding the problem right now. So in addition to your traffic, in addition to the noise, in addition to, again, the aesthetics, there's also the school to be considered as well. So those are my points. I am clearly not in favor of this proposal. I understand that we're looking to have a return on investment from a piece of property that's been sitting there for years. I understand that totally. I'm in business myself. However, a high-density project is not your answer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. John Bobian. Okay.
Good afternoon. John Bobian here. I live at 7425 South Utica Street in the Meadowbrook subdivision right across the street from the proposed development. What I'd like to do very quickly is take a quick poll. Could everybody who lives within a 1 mile radius of the project stand? Could any of those people who live within the 1 mile radius that are standing, that supports the project, please remain standing? Everybody else sit down. I would also recommend to the board that they verify some of the statistics put forward by the developer. As far as the 16 support letters, they may have them, but plot them on a graph, plot them on a map, find out where they live in terms of their respective orientation to the proposed development. And as far as the vacancy statistics provided with regard to the occupancy in the various high-density buildings that exist already, I would suggest that if you haven't independently verified those statistics, I would just recommend that the zoning board do that before they draw any conclusions from that. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Val Watson. I need to reboot it or something. It's locked.
He's coming.
Nobody looked at his password.
Mm-hmm.
Go to my computer. If you're going to, just for future reference, if you're going to do a PowerPoint or anything, it'd be nice to let us know so that we can anticipate that and get it set up. Thank you. You want to go
There
ahead?
are pictures of the traffic is really important.
Okay,
that
we
I
need
want to show you. So do you want to go to someone else while we figure this out?
Sure.
Right.
In fact, John Watson, or is it the same? We'll go to Betty Harris. Is she here? Betty Harris? Oh, I'm sorry.
You may want to take it off the screen so it's not distracting. Thank you.
I may need the overhead. My name is Betty Harris. I live at 6281 South Cedar Street. Approving this rezone will continue the age-old process in Littleton of haphazard development. The problem was created long ago because there was little real planning. The current retail the city has is widely spaced, poorly built, old, and out of style. But here lies an open space that is zoned retail with good potential for decent design and planning when the retail cycle returns, as it surely will. Rezoning now to add in more apartments will reduce potential retail space for our town and will cram more people into this area where, I am told, the students and perhaps even some of the teachers of Wilder Elementary already hate the children who live in Pinnacle. Building more apartments doesn't solve this problem. The recent citizen survey is very interesting if one pays attention to what it really says rather than some numbers and percentages. Although the respondents felt that the city was safe and has a low crime rate, it also says fewer people responding to the survey felt that traffic flows well on the city streets. This development will not improve citizens' opinion in this regard. The city council goal that received the highest proportion of residents' responses was that more effort should be applied with pursuing a balanced and sustainable economy. Filling retail space with high-density housing is not going to create a balanced and sustainable economy. It appears that the city is jumping on the current bandwagon, waving the current flag that says the only game in town is high-density development, which totally ignores what the citizens themselves want. We would all shop in Littleton if the current retail centers were updated, and the kind of shopping that we need was provided here. I'm a quilter, but we have no fabric store. I want new furniture, but there's no furniture store. If I shop elsewhere, it doesn't help Littleton. Now, if I could have that, let's see if you can see this. Can you enlarge that? This is a chart that was from the citizen survey. It says that one of the most important projects is for taking an active role in the redevelopment of aging shopping centers. And my question is, where is the action on this? Pressing issues in Littleton? The top one says job growth. Apartments don't create permanent jobs. The second one says traffic in general. This doesn't solve that problem. It doesn't decrease traffic. And the business retention, we've really got to work together on that. And this one says the importance of marketing and shopping in Littleton. And you can see that 80% of the respondents think that it's very important to promote Littleton as a place to shop for recreation and in entertainment. And the second part says that basically if you place the option to shop locally in Littleton or on the internet or in other cities, all things considered, how important is it for you to shop in Littleton? And you can see that more than 60% say that's important. How can we do that if we fill all the retail space with apartments?
30 seconds.
With proper planning, we could upgrade and update the city without using eminent domain and without setting the citizens against each other. You remember from Sesame Street, it's called cooperation. But this must be between the city and the citizens, not between the city and outside developers whose only aim is profit. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we fix the problem? And I'm sorry, did you already state your name and address?
Not yet.
I never got started.
Never got started. Now I forget how to make it a presentation. I always forget to make it a presentation rather than the... Yeah.
I'm going to start your time.
F5. Thank you. Hi, my name is Val Watson. I live at 4500 West Hinsdale Avenue. My backyard is on Mineral. I am one voice, but I'm a voice that lives in Littleton and across the street from this proposed project. There are 5 properties that are affected by the addition of 250 apartments. Pinnacle at Mountain Gate, 496 apartments, and yes, I did ask them. I went and visited every one of these. Their vacancy rate is 11.96%. There at Meadowbrook Homes, there are 80. Overlook, 52. Sanctuary at Polo Reserve is 16, and Polo Reserve is approximately 56. I had to hand count them. There are 700 homes that are already experiencing difficulty entering and exiting their housing areas. In my case, it can take up to 7 minutes to exit and around 4 to turn in. It would take longer if the lights at Polo Reserve did not cycle for the traffic to stop, and that's thanks to Charlie. He came to our HOA meeting, and he told us that there were 35,000 cars a day on Mineral. That's what Charlie told us. This is going east on Mineral. Sorry, it's a little dark. Turning north onto Dusk. Here's another going east on Mineral, turning north on Dusk during rush hour traffic. Here is going south. As you can see, we even have to deal with pedestrians and bicycle people. Another picture, totally, we can't get in or out during rush hour. And again, another. This all leads to one of the top 3 pressing issues raised by the citizens of Littleton in the 2012-13 Citizens Scoreboard. Said that traffic tied with business retention and awarded more attention to business attraction or street maintenance, meaning we have a problem already, and if you add another 250 apartments with an average of 375 more cars, we will experience more waiting times to leave or return home. Now let me share with you the findings of their own independent firm hired to conduct the traffic impact study for Meadows at Platte Canyon. I may have misread these, but I read that they had a failing level. During 2015 total traffic scenario, a failing level of service during the AM and PM peak hour periods. The second was at Utica Drive in Mineral. Again, 2015 total traffic scenario, failing levels. And then finally, the North Commercial Access in Mineral proposed 2015 total traffic scenario showed unacceptable levels. You're going to add this on top of where we already are. It's going to be dangerous. In the winter...
1 minute.
Sorry. I have all these. In the winter, the city has to bring a grader to remove the ice buildup on the north side of Overlook and the Pinnacle. It gets so bad, no one uses this lane. It's unsafe. There's already been 1 death and 2 injuries due to the icy conditions. What will happen with this proposed development? Height blocks the melting process, and because it is not clear from the plans posted if they will stick to this 3 stories and achieve their apartment goals. We know that eventually this land will be developed, and rather it be a RMU like the streets of South Glen or Belmar. This is the solution we have given to the developer. We've talked to them, and we've been told it's not financially feasible. I started with one voice. There's a point to this. There's a fraction of citizens who feel they can't make a difference, and you don't factor our opinions into your decision. They don't get involved. They don't give their opinions. Well, I'm an idealist, and I believe that you will hear my one voice and give it the significance it deserves. Thank you for your service, and thank you for hearing one voice.
Thank you. And John Watson.
Thank you. I'll set up.
Good evening. John Watson, 4500 West Hinsdale Avenue, Littleton, Colorado, 80128. My first issue is going to be discussing a macro view of Littleton apartments, since our concerns are about the economics. We think we have 5,800 Littleton units. That's from the 2010 census, with an estimate on the average annual growth of 2.5%, shown as 0.3. We have 3,000 units now proposed for the city of Littleton in calendar year 2013. You've heard that statistic before. Apparently nobody's taking a macro view of this process and seeing that we're going to have more than 50% of the units proposed for the city of Littleton than we already have for inventory. If we have a logical annual growth rate of our actual growth rate, according to census figures from 2010 and 2000, we'd have a 2.5% increase or an annual growth rate. That's 145 units. So far in 2013, we've had 2 projects approved, Littleton Commons and Nevada Place. That's 428 units. Well, that's 3 times the number we need already. We also have 16 units previously approved in other years that haven't been built yet. And now we have this proposal of another 250 units. That's almost 250 years worth of inventory, but it's actually only 20.69 years of inventory is being proposed right now. Every one of these apartment complexes that's being proposed is on retail zoned land. Littleton has a very finite amount of parcels available for development. We think there's 5 or 6 major parcels. Virtually every single one is being proposed presently for apartments. That's the hot ticket. That's the number that people are trying to hit. Cram as many high-density apartment units on a parcel as you can get. It maximizes profit. It's understandable. The Meadows proposal is 16 acres, 13 of which would go to apartments tonight. Littleton Commons already went retail to apartments. Bellevue, the villages of Bellevue that are coming before you in the future, was going to be 80,000 square feet of retail being proposed to be converted to apartments. Broadstone already previously proposed, and you understood the project, and those are supposed to go to apartments from commercial. Marathon's going to mixed use and apartments. That's the 3,000 we're talking about right now. The result of doing that many apartments at this time, not even talking about the future or the developments that are planned or the 3,000 units, are that we're having vacancies. We did an independent assessment of the vacancies at Pinnacle at Mountain Gate, immediately contiguous to the property that's being proposed. Their stated vacancy rate by the manager last week was 11.96%. Now, that's not the real vacancy rate. The real vacancy rate is an economic vacancy. The economic vacancy is they're giving you 1 month of no deposit, so they have no deposit, which is a 1 month rent, which is another 8% vacancy rate, and they're waiving the application fee. That makes it a 20% economic vacancy. We also have the issue of the property taxes. First of all, you're going to adversely affect the property taxes of the Meadowbrook, Overlook, and Polo Ridge subdivisions.
30
by
seconds.
adding so many apartments. We're going to also have the property tax consequence of having a large apartment complex. For example, the Alexand complex pays $18,000 in Littleton sales tax. I don't know what this project is going to pay, but if we consider it's half the number of units, it's 250 instead of the 400, it's going to be a very insubstantial property tax payments. Meanwhile, we're going to be dealing with the status of the traffic, the congestion you've heard about, delays, rush hours, and the ice, the school consequences, and the loss of retail. Now, we have many recommendations that we've tried to give the developer, and hopefully you've heard those, but the property in its present configuration doesn't work for the neighbors, doesn't work for the city, doesn't work for anybody except the developer, and we urge you to not support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Bingham. Just to give you a heads up, we have 2 more, unless for somebody who hasn't signed up.
Good evening, Planning Board. My name is Paul Bingham. I live at 236 West Delaware Circle. I agree with what the other folks have said tonight. I will not repeat that, except that I want to reemphasize what John just said about the large numbers of apartments. I suspect that no apartments in Littleton is not healthy for Littleton. I also suspect that 100% of apartments in Littleton would be unhealthy. Right now, we've got 5,800 apartments in Littleton. Like John said, we're looking at, well, actually, I think we're looking at a couple thousand plus or minus new apartments. In any case, it's about a 20-year supply of apartments that we're looking at possibly approving here in the next year or two. I'm sure that that's not healthy. I would like to encourage you folks to consider that in your deliberations on what to approve. And also, this has longer range effects. I would really appreciate it if you folks would consider this in planning, working out the comm plan. What would we in Littleton really like to have in Littleton by way of apartments? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Norm Brown is not in favor and is not, and is not going to speak. Correct? Lou Sullivan? You need to just come to the podium and state your name and address. Okay. Pam Chadbourne?
And again, I hope I can get the projection. So my name is Pam Chadbourne. I live at I still live at 5402 South Nevada Street in District 1. So let me make a few comments about the presentations and then talk a little bit more about my objections to this project and why I recommend that you do not recommend to approve this rezoning request. Parking meets municipal requirements. We've already been through this before, and we don't think the municipal requirements are adequate for parking. That the residents would spend their money in Littleton, I doubt. I think that they'll get on 470 and go to Highlands Ranch or up on Wadsworth. Why would they go to increase density and congestion to shop in Littleton? I doubt that it's going to increase Littleton's retail income a lot. Less traffic is false. And the reason for that is it's all about traffic pattern. It's not about traffic numbers. And this will increase traffic at rush hour. And so you've already heard a number of comments about congestion on these corridors. It doesn't decrease traffic. The 1 mile radius is also an inappropriate paradigm to use for this because there are restricted corridors. So there's water and places where you can't build, so it's much more appropriate to extend the distance that you're going along the corridors. So the 1 mile radius really isn't an appropriate metric for retail at this site. And changing conditions, again, they're cyclical, and to judge on the current conditions is inappropriate. But high density at this site, high residential density, you can point out the really uneven density along these corridors. And that inherently causes issues which we haven't heard the city assess. So I made a general comment earlier, and let me say that unfortunately, and forgive my frustration and anger about this, but unfortunately the presentation tonight proved what I said. The city presented no data about the impact of this rezoning request on our community. And we are entitled as people who live here, and you folks as planning board members who have to vote on this, need the data that our staff should be providing. I like Ernie. This isn't personal about Ernie. This is about our city management. It's failing us, and that needs to get fixed. So in this case, we didn't get the data that we need. Now, how will you decide what you need to decide tonight? I think you could postpone or table to a later date. I don't know if you can do that. And ask for this additional information, or you can judge from what you've heard. And I think common sense, there are limited options with travel corridors in Littleton. And let me point out the Broadway corridor, Santa Fe, and then this is Lowell Platte Canyon. And already, further to the north, folks are coming
30
up.
seconds.
Folks are coming up from Santa Fe to Platte Canyon, Lowell, to avoid the traffic on Santa Fe. In 10, 15, 20 years, what's that going to be like? So, and Platte Canyon is hard to widen. So, increasing residential density here at a gateway is a bad idea. What about evacuation plans? There's a lot of people right there. How are we going to get out of here if we need to? There's a lot of things that haven't been considered. I'd like you folks to reject this rezoning request. There are alternatives to this, and we can do better than this proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anyone not spoken who'd like to speak who hasn't spoken already? Okay. At this time, I'd like to allow the applicant to respond to testimony, if you'd like.
Tyler Carlson, 7899 East 32nd Avenue, Denver. I am the retail guy at Evergreen. I spearhead all of our shopping center development, and I thought I would just take a few moments to address a couple of the concerns that were raised on the retail aspect of it. And first of all, it's been a rough night. I lost my wallet and my keys, and then my buddy Jeff beat up retail. And what he failed to mention is that this deal was actually sourced by me and Brian on our retail side, and it was our hope to do a anchored, ideally grocery anchored shopping center at the property. That's what I do. I opened up Colfax 2 weeks ago. We have a King Super Center we're doing right now in Aurora. Grocery, pharmacy, anchored centers is what we specialize in. And unfortunately, what Brian and I found out after trying for the first several months of our escrow with Chuck and David, the owners, is that there is zero desire from any anchor tenants for this property. And the reason being is that either the anchors have landed or they're frankly waiting for the Enzer Sod Farm property to be developed, because everyone looks at the traffic counts on Santa Fe, and that's where they want to be if you're an anchor. If you're Sprouts, if you're King Supers, if you're Kohl's, if you're a theater, if you're any of these users who drive a vibrant 16-acre development, they want to be on Santa Fe, not on Mineral and Platte Canyon. And so what that led our development team to is a compared to what scenario. Like, okay, if there is no anchored retail opportunity here, what is your options? And within the current zoning, the only other option that's commercial, that's viable in the back of the property is frankly self-storage, in our opinion, based upon the market research that we did. And we were pretty sure that the neighbors would not like a self-storage complex. So they're generally less favorable even than apartments. And so we had a conversation with Jeff, our apartment team members. Hey, Jeff, the commercial side can't make sense of an anchored center here. What we do know is there are a couple of users who are interested in a corner at the Mineral and Platte Canyon intersection. We have a couple of restaurants, a coffee shop, we have a donut shop. We had a lot of gas station users that we've all turned down because we don't want them next to our apartments. And we have a daycare operator. So we have a handful of users who can occupy 3 acres, but there's no anchor. And what Jeff did is canvass the existing apartment communities in the area and found out that, contrary to some of the facts, that there is about a 5% vacancy in the adjacent neighborhoods, and that a common complaint we were hearing from people we were talking to is that there's not a lot of entry-level housing in Littleton. It's great if you make $150,000, you can live in Littleton pretty easily. If you make $40,000, it's tough because there's not a lot of affordable housing stock in this community, and it's a testament to the fact that you have a great city. It's a great place to live, and everyone knows that. It's no secret. My wife grew up in this area. And so because of that, Jeff and I started working on a plan to integrate the retail that we didn't know was possible with the apartments, with some multifamily housing to wrap around and integrate with it. And I'll tell you from a traffic standpoint, I, as a retail guy, 1,000% want that signal. It will help my retail be more viable. I have users who are only interested if there's a signal. They're at Wolf Street, so our interests are aligned. And I thought it was also ironic that a lot of the same concerns that the neighborhood has are the same concerns I hear when I do a retail center. Because frankly, any traffic engineer who knows the International Traffic Manual will tell you that retail generates significantly more AM/PM traffic than multifamily, significantly. So we're usually the bad guys from an AM/PM traffic standpoint. So for that said, I'm excited for the retail corner we have. We have a couple of great users. I wish I could deliver a Sprouts deal. That was what I was hoping to do. We have a fantastic relationship with those guys, but they have turned it down repeatedly. I keep pestering them about it. And again, the reason being is as long as the sod farm is hanging out there, I am 100% confident that no one will play at this corner because that's the Christmas present everyone's waiting for. So thank you for your time. If you have any retail-specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn the time back over to Jeff.
I have a question, actually. On the map, it shows parcel A, B, and C, but it doesn't really get into where the building will be versus the parking and what kind of a setback there'll be. Can you talk on that at all?
Yeah, sure. We have some preliminary site plans, and I don't have them with us. So we've shown around to a couple of different users. What we've contemplated so far is a restaurant user on the hard corner of Mineral and Platte Canyon, and we had this really great bakery that I was super excited about that we're still waiting to see if they come around. It's a group out of Utah that's Panera-esque. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, you can turn on the projector. This is one idea for the retail corner that we've floated to a couple of users. So this parcel A would be, again, that bakery-type restaurant. And like Panera, they have a drive-through. Panera's adding drive-throughs to all their units, which is pretty cool, at least for someone like me who always has less time than I need. Parcel B is we have a daycare user who's very interested in the site. Because they look at the wonderful incomes in the neighborhoods and they see a need for that use. And then parcel C is a multi-tenant building that, again, we have three or four tenants that are interested. We're not quite to the point where we have all of the leasing we need to build it because you can't build spec shop center, multi-tenant buildings these days. But we have a coffee guy interested. We have a juice guy interested. We have an insurance agent. We have a sandwich shop. So this is our hope is that we would either do a build-to-suit for parcels A and B for those single-tenant users, and for parcel C, we would do a construct a building, have a multi-tenant type of arrangement.
Thank you, that helps.
Sure.
Let the applicant go ahead and rebut anything that you want to, and then afterwards we'll do questions or do a quick break.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thanks for all the comments. One thing that I hear all the time is traffic. And yes, there's more traffic than a vacant lot. That is true. But this is also significant. This is half the traffic that the existing zoning allows for. I know it's kind of hard to think about less than none, because there is none today. But it is a lower traffic count than what a retail center would generate. I've got my traffic engineer here if you guys want to go to details on the intersections and which lanes. That was actually, Val was talking about specific lanes. We can do that. I'm not going to, ask me when I get done and I'll be happy to do so. Besides traffic, crossing at Mineral is a big deal. And it's a big deal. I've heard that from all the neighbors. So what we can affect as a developer is our traffic signal that we can add. Now, I don't know how a traffic signal here can't help Meadowbrook. I mean, it's getting in and out of there was the concern that I heard from everybody. But clearly, a traffic signal on a 31,000 car per day street should be better than none. With regard to the overlook, it doesn't show it well. I don't know that I've got a good exhibit. But one of the things that the city asked us to do, and we did do, was we redesigned our site and moved buildings around so that we can make a traffic connection through to the Pinnacle Apartments, and the roads actually connect through to the overlook. And that's why I said I don't have a really good example here, but staff can back me up on this. But there's this road has a connection over here that connects to the overlook, and I know it's not a traffic light in front of the overlook, but at least it's a way to get to a left turn across Mineral if that's ever an issue. And that's something we worked with staff, both Charlie and the planning group on. Children and pets in schools. Schools. So part of the standard referral package is to send this to the schools. We did. We didn't hear back. So, I didn't, beyond that, I haven't made an effort to go talk to the schools. But, we did, they're aware of it. With respect to our tenant base, though, this property in concept is going to be about half ones and half two bedrooms. And so what we find is with these smaller unit sizes, we get a smaller proportion of children than you do in those properties that have 1, 2, 3, and sometimes even 4-bedroom units. The Pinnacle, for example, behind us is only about a third 1-bedroom units, and the rest are 2s and 3s. So that would be on a kind of per unit basis would tend to generate more kids. The other thing that we do, and I think most apartment developers today do, are try to provide a set of amenities within the property so that it can be self-contained, and so that the residents and the children and the pets are not a burden on the neighbors. For example, we have a dog walk, which is a fenced dog walk here. We have a ton of open lawn space here to play on. And Chris mentioned some of the other kind of sitting, playing, seating areas, which, when we get to site plan, I'd love to talk to you about that if we get to site plan. But, we do try to accommodate that as we go. Ken Paul did talk to me, and I did see a letter about the trail on the back of Overlook, and it's way over here. We did talk with city staff and to see if there was, if there was anything that we could do. It's not something we control. It's not something we can help with. I think it'd be a great idea. We would be happy to contribute to working on it. But again, it's not mine to solve. Setbacks and building heights. So the application asks for building heights of 50 feet. In fact, our buildings are less than 40 feet, so there's a 10-foot spare space there. We have 50-foot setbacks for the commercial as per the initial PDP, and 40-foot setbacks for the residential. The Meadowbrook across the way actually has 50-foot setbacks as a reference. I guess the last thing I want to talk about is the need for apartments in Denver. And today, we subscribe to third-party reporting, and I get reports every quarter about how many apartments are in process, what the occupancies are, et cetera. And today, the vacancy rate in Denver is 4.17% for the entire metro area. I did see a statistic from the Colorado Apartment Association that put Littleton vacancy under 3%. I don't, I haven't gone back and looked at the entire area, but what I did do is I brought a report from a third party, and there, yeah, if you can get in here, this actually references the source, and this is the Pinnacle. So just to clear a few points up, I don't know what the vacancy in the Pinnacle is today because I didn't go check it. This is second quarter data. It's prepared by a third party. The entire industry relies upon this guy. And at the end of June, the vacancy rate was 7%. That's a point or two different from what the market study showed, but that was done 3-4 months ago, and things do move around. I did kind of point out over here, this shows the mix of the units. It shows the unit size, the number, and in fact, the one-bedrooms only represent about a third of the units here. And finally, this is really high math, but if you look at our property, I think, it's the hand scribbles on the bottom there, I think that we'll be paying in excess of $200,000 a year in property taxes for our property. I don't remember how many units are at the election, but every unit pays $1,000 a year in taxes. So that's the real data that's available through the assessor. That's what I've got. Any other questions?
That's your rebuttal? You're done with your rebuttal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're going to do questions after, if staff has any additional information to follow up on, or, okay. So we've been going for 2 hours, and I want to ask my board if you want a 5-minute break.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, we're in recess for 5 minutes. I ask the board not to talk to anybody.
To anybody?
Well, you and me. It used to be 10 minutes. It turns into 10.
Actually, no, all of the other ones were thrown in the bottom of my kid's idea of putting the plastic water bottles back in the fridge is drink them and then just throw them back in the fridge. So whatever rolls out. Whatever seriously falls out. And so I wanted to try it. My guess is I think most of the you know what it was? And I did it was between this and the House of Bounce. And I thought this was the night.
You obviously didn't study your packet this weekend.
Oh, yeah, we were in Steamboat.
Oh, wow.
And it's funny because until last week, my tan on my feet stopped. And after Don't talk to my wife. She flipped over and bruised herself several times, right?
Right, because it was kind of
But I
rural.
bought some tubes, because I thought, we can do it. I've been wanting to do it for years, and we just never pulled the trigger, and now they have tubes on sale. It is reasonable. I just bought a few. I actually ended up buying a compressor, because I thought I had one, and just...
New places here. I've been hearing a lot of people going. I don't know if a lot of people come on staycation. Yeah, I love staycation.
Yeah, we actually own the timeshare. It doesn't, it's one of those cold stays where you can stuff all over. And my wife's parents, or my wife's mom owns a bunch of points, so she's ended up giving them away at the end of the year. So we've been going to steamboat for several years. Same place. Yeah, the river and the trail.
Rearranging all this.
Yeah.
I could take down your number.
Yeah, so it was fun. So yeah, we were outside most of the time.
What's your name is?
We didn't even get to do most of the stuff we wanted to. Brought fishing poles, never fished. Bought bikes. Yeah, I think the kids biked.
That means you relax.
Yeah, I did. I sat by the other thing they like.
They never adjusted.
Going down to the library.
Kind of a rural arterial.
And there's like a little standing wave behind the library, and then 3 hours on Sunday.
Yeah.
Just right there. And they would like, I left one tube inflated, and they take the tube and the kayak up like 200 yards and I'd float down that section and take it back. That's awesome. Yeah, they had a great time.
I can't put anything in March.
It was after hours.
I can't do it during.
I scoped out the list.
You drive that every day.
It was because I couldn't bring it up.
They do have that little
My
light that
iPad, and I haven't
flashes
called
if you
the help
go
desk
over
back.
45.
And I wasn't going to bring my work computer up with the big West.
He's right. Where you come from my area, it's
I figured this was a better. You're
Happy to. Sure.
Or just before 7. But I don't know.
Look at that.
So text that. I don't know how to get off of that.
Oh.
Can you readjust it to the way I look at it?
Okay. At this point, I want to open up questions from the board to ask the applicant or staff for clarification on any issue you have. And we're just going to go left to right. So Dave, you're lucky first.
Yes. So I was a little unclear. Maybe this is a question for staff mostly. On page 2 of the packet, it talks about how a signal at Wolf is not warranted, and you had said that they should provide access. Do you know where that access would be that you're recommending?
Actually, he had deep.
I mean, the existing plan, the plan that came with the packet, has one access through from Pinnacle, it looks like.
This plan here should show it.
Zoom out a little bit, please.
It's upside down, too.
I can fix that. Cool. All right, so proposed access is right here.
Okay.
Proposed access is between these two buildings. We actually moved buildings around to create a wide enough area to go through there. We've had dozens of conversations with the neighbors to try to get that done. Again, we don't have control there, but we've offered to build the access. We've set our site up so that if we can get the neighbors to approve, we're ready to go. And so we show it here in green. It can go either way.
Okay.
Okay. Well, since you're here, we'll start. The three-pad sites, circulation, it looked like you had a drawing that showed how the three sites, how you get around the three sites, especially to the one to the far west. So I assume you'll have some type of internal driveway to get to the third pad. Is that correct?
Yeah, so at one point we had suggested, and I think I got this right, I'm sorry, I was looking for a site plan to address you. At one point we had a traffic lane through here, and we've since eliminated that, so the access to the pads is off the right in, right out, off Mineral here, as well as the spine drive there on the corner.
Okay.
Did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
So it's that's proposed, or the city going along with that right in, right out curb cut?
They're going along with it. It's approved.
Okay.
What we wanted to do was a right driveway on Platte Canyon, but CDOT controls that, and it's too close. And so for a while, we had this concept where we were trying to do potentially a frontage road, to take advantage of the right driveway that's existing on Platte Canyon. But from a design standpoint, and the staff did not like the frontage road. It was awkward and not efficient. And frankly, you don't pick up too much, because when you have a right driveway, from a retail standpoint, what you care the most about is getting people into the site. And the only people you're picking up going into the site from Platte Canyon is from the south, and there's not a lot of houses to the south. Everyone's to the north. So anyways, that's why we're back to this plan with it's only being a mineral-loaded site.
This question concerns the heights of the building. Could you tell me where the three-story buildings are and where the two-story buildings are in the colored illustration?
Well, actually, all the buildings are both.
I'm sorry?
All the buildings are both 2 and 3 stories.
Okay. I see, because the center of the building is a three-story
Right.
portion.
The center, this area right here, for example, is a 3-story, and then the 2 wings are 2-story buildings.
So they're all similar?
That's true of every one of these.
Fine. Okay.
One of the things we did when we started this design process is, it's a rezone. So we worked pretty hard on trying to create something that worked well for the neighborhood. I didn't come in with 3 stories by 8-unit blocks and jam the density. That would have been the cold-hearted answer, and you could probably support that. But we worked pretty hard. We picked Kephart because they had this product, and it's a really nice-looking product, and I think it'll fit well in the community. So we actually, we didn't even pretend to add the 3rd story on the 2-story parts and get more density and then take it back. We just came in with something I thought that would work.
Was Kephart involved with the development to the apartments to the south?
Nope.
No, somebody else. Okay. The rest of my questions are staff questions. It's been mentioned several times about an access to the park to the south of the southern boundary. This developer has nothing to do with that. Has the city discussed that issue? Is that a possibility, or is that not a possibility?
Well, we've talked about it, but bring it into actually making it happen, we haven't figured out how to do that. That is more of it's on private property. My understanding, and maybe Jeff knows this, or the person who called, it was there at one time and it's faded away, is when the apartments went in, or something to that effect. We don't have a whole lot of data on it.
So it's a piece of private property that they would have to make some type of
Exactly.
agreement. Okay. Has the economic development director been consulted as to the loss of the commercial/retail space, and what is her opinion?
Yeah, on our staff, she certainly is a part of the review process, and I think what's kind of the compelling issue here is when you do look at that radius and the fact that a good part of the market area is gone. So we don't ask for a formal recommendation, but she's part of the review process and feels it's justified, the change in use.
Okay, we didn't get any of the, what do you call it, review comments back from staff or traffic or any of those, but but she's in general agreement with the
yes, sir.
redevelopment. Somebody mentioned, well, I think it was the architect that lives in the neighborhood, are the 3 pads a bone to the retail use, or do you think they're a viable use? If you put on your realtor shoes, what would you say?
Well, I think it's a viable use, particularly when you add the additional units. So you reduce the amount of retail, and now it doesn't have to have a major tenant on the site, and you provide additional market area for it. So we actually pushed for additional acreage. When we looked at kind of what the numbers were, we thought that we'd end up with some more vacant land at the end of the day. So staff actually backed off. We wanted a 5-acre site because that's about the maximum size where you wouldn't have a major tenant. But again, we didn't think that would be successful. So.
How many acres do we have now as remaining commercial?
This is a 3-acre site.
I'm sorry?
This is a 3-acre site.
Okay.
Showing.
Then finally, comments. Did you get any comment from governing agencies, specifically school district? What did they say about this project, and can they handle the load?
I sent a referral and didn't get a letter back. I'll double check with them, but I do not have anything back from them.
No comment?
No comment.
I think we're projecting 20 school-age children from high school to elementary as a total.
20.
20. Isn't that what you're...
The school district said that, not you.
That was the... It's in that.
26. Now, that's a projection from your PD plan that the applicant provide. I think it's based on census numbers, which I think is probably a pretty good basis for school generation.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
You had a comment in, I guess this is the letter, the front of your document that was provided. It was a banter between you and Ernie, and he asked questions, you responded. That's the section I'm referring to. In the architecture, you go back and forth, and there's a sentence in here, your response says, we would like to maintain some flexibility in the language regarding masonry in the event that a modification of building materials is required. That sounds like a trap door to garbage.
Actually, we had asked originally to do this instead of with brick, with stone, and got a pretty strong feedback from the staff they wanted brick. We've agreed to that, and we've actually redesigned the buildings and the site plan to accommodate that brick. It may sound goofy, but a brick ledge is about 6 inches, so on both sides of every building it's a foot, and it actually moves buildings around on the site. So we are currently planning on building brick.
Is there any sort of industry standard, LEED standard that you intend to follow in the design and development of this, or are you kind of on your own quality standard?
The IECC is the current energy code, and today, so we are not planning to ask for a LEED certification. However, the IECC, the current building code with apartments today, and we can get the architect up here if you want to talk, if you'd like to ask him about that, but usually puts apartments with basic building construction in a LEED basic or LEED bronze category. You just, to get the certification, you have to pay somebody to say, yes, in fact, you are there, you've got enough points. And you know, we typically don't get a lot of benefit from that, but we are building a very highly efficient building. Would you like to hear from the architect on that point?
Quality of the ultimate build is where my head's at on this. And I don't want to cut corners for the sake of cost and development that as a community hurts us 30 years from now. So if you could just speak a little more on steps that you would take to ensure that that quality is maintained.
Well, you know, we own these buildings. I mean, so it doesn't make sense to build something cheap. I live, as I said before, I live down Mineral, and I drive by these things every day. My reputation as a developer in this town is what is it you build. So we hired, I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. We build a high-quality product. It's an A product. We're looking for A rents. You don't get A rents if you build garbage.
Earlier tonight, I asked this is to staff about who owned the intersection. This, without question, is going to add significant traffic in an area that's already congested. Is there any sort of current plan for the, whether it be widening, improvement, or just fixing the mineral problem within the city's various departments?
I think one of the things that will slow down traffic would be the additional light. And Ernie did start off by saying with it a standalone project, it didn't meet warrants, but we're trying to get as much traffic as we can so that we're assured it meets warrants. And the developer is committed to doing that. But as you know, that's normally a public works decision. We don't have, as part of our capital plan, to widen the intersection. It is an intersection controlled by Littleton, but it also includes CDOT as well. So it's not purely a decision by the city of Littleton. But at this point, we don't have any capital improvement plan to widen the intersection or add additional lanes.
What was the thought pattern of eliminating the Platte Canyon entrances and exits and focusing everything on Mineral? I don't know who that's to. You know.
So with regard to retail, so you're asking about the retail?
Is the retail the only thing that has right in, right out? Everything else has a Platte Canyon and Mineral access point?
And the Platte Canyon access is not a right in, right out. It's got that big pork chop in the middle of it, which only gets you, right in, right out. But no lefts, I'm sorry. So the real answer is that the Wolf intersection curb cut and concept goes back to the original PDP. That's been there since 1985. So we use that, and that allows us to put the traffic light to help the folks across the street. But that's where the traffic is. That's where the access is.
And we're going to be escrowing the money for the signal whether or not Public Works lets us put it in. So as soon as Public Works allows it to be built, they'll have the money. Because, like I said, from a retail standpoint, I want that signal just as much as anybody else because it will help drive. Because retailers have the same concern. They don't want their customers coming in and then getting killed leaving the retail center. So, especially since we don't have direct access off Platte Canyon because CDOT won't allow it. So we're fully supportive of the signal. We're putting our money where our mouth is in that regard.
Thank you.
I'm good for now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I just have a few questions. There seems to be a lot of discussion around traffic, so I'm going to want to hear from your traffic engineer in a minute, or you, whoever you want to designate. If the schools didn't respond, then that implies to me that they didn't have a concern. Littleton has shut down schools in the past years, and they tend to bus kids to where they need them to make the schools more efficient. Explain to me how you arrived at the traffic light. I just want to hear a discussion about the traffic light and maybe its impact on the main intersection. What's the distance from the intersection to the traffic light? Just explain a little bit about how you arrived at the decision for the light and the impact on traffic.
I'm Mike Kibbe with Harris Coker Smith. I'm traffic engineer for the developer. We're at 1120 Lincoln Street, Suite 1000, Denver 80203. The traffic light at Wolf and Mineral has been a programmed signal by the city since the very beginning of all of the development around the area, basically because they foresaw that there would be a need to allow access onto Mineral from all of the development, both on the north and the south side, as the people have said, it's very difficult to access onto Mineral, which it is, and then the traffic study supports that. So having a traffic signal there would allow all of both north and the south communities to be able to access mineral with a safe level of higher level of safety. Now the Wolf Street is currently approximately 600 or so feet east of Platte Canyon Road. I think that's what you're referring to, right? So with that, we've analyzed looking at stacking distances and that for both left turn bays and that kind of thing, and there's acceptable room clear through the design year of 2030 to accept those queue lengths, vehicle queue lengths.
Is your peak afternoon rush hour?
Pardon?
The peak traffic is afternoon rush hour?
Yes.
Westbound?
Westbound and eastbound in the morning, and they're both about the same, and they're quite high, as you've heard testimony of, which makes it very difficult for anybody trying to access Mineral Avenue, especially with a left turn.
Right. And then as far as, this may not be a traffic question, but as far as that connection to Pinnacle, you're saying that's not a done deal?
It's not.
And what was the purpose for that, to allow alternative routes?
The access to Pinnacle is to allow both Pinnacle and Overlook access to a light so they can make left turns on to Mineral.
So residents could, if they choose, meander through their community to get to a light.
Yeah, and whether or not Pinnacle steps up on that issue, you could still get there via the Spine Road through our site or via Platte Canyon, because
they could go down
Platte
to the
Canyon
other-
is actually connected all the way to the Outlook, and it's not obviously as convenient as driving out to the front of your neighborhood and turning left, but it's a way to get there.
Right. So they can go out to Platte Canyon, turn right, and then get over to Mineral without any problem whatsoever. So, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm sorry, are there bike lanes on their street? Didn't Littleton do a bike study, and does this street have bike lanes? Question to staff.
I think across the street, it's not on the street bike lane, no, there's no bike lanes on the street.
On the street, there's no bike lanes.
The sidewalk on the other side of the street is quite wide, and a lot of bikes ride on it, but it's not a bike lane.
I'm a biker. I'd like bike lanes. That's all the questions I have.
Hi. I have one follow-up question on traffic.
Sure.
So I might have missed this in the packet. Is there an assessment of to what extent the traffic will increase with these units, what percentage it would increase from today?
Mike, can you answer that?
On Mineral, the traffic will, based on 2030 projected traffic counts, the apartments will generate approximately 6% of ADT on Mineral Drive.
Okay.
It's about 2,000 to 2,400 vehicles per day versus the total traffic on Mineral of 37,000, over 37,000 vehicles per day.
And ADT is average daily trips?
That's correct.
And I'm sorry, I missed, is there a traffic light at Platte Canyon and Mineral?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I have a question for the retail development. So what I heard you say is you had some tenants that were interested, some smaller scale tenants that were interested in some commercial space, and then based on that developed a project to kind of support the whole area, which included the apartments. So that's what I heard.
Sure.
Was there any analysis done on mixed use for this property, or given that you had some leads for commercial development, you just really worked on developing those leads and developing the property overall?
You know, when we started our marketing effort, we actually didn't show any plans. You know, Brian and I, we left a blank slate to see what types of tenants we would get, because there are certain types of tenants that will go in a mixed-use project, and there's types that are going to go in a grocery project, and there's types that will go in kind of a neighborhood, smaller type of project like this. And, the mixed-use tenants tend to be, higher-end restaurants, boutiques, clothing stores, places like that that actually can synergize on a destinational kind of venue, like Streets of Southland. It's high restaurant, high boutique type of stuff. You don't find them in a King Super shopping center. King Super's tenants are driven by the anchor of the daily need and the visibility and convenience. And the types of users that were getting responses from the market were very convenience driven. Like I said, the number one category was gas stations, and Jeff told me unequivocally, no way in heck are we doing a gas station on the corner. And then it was convenience type users. It was your coffee guy who needs someone to get in and out quickly. It was your sandwich guy who's same thing, in and out quickly. It was your insurance agent, people like that. The daycare who moms want to be able to drop their kid off fairly efficiently. So the challenge is we just didn't have the tenant interest. And part of it's we're a victim of the success of Aspen Grove. Aspen Grove is one of the best quality destinational soft goods centers in the metro area. And so any of those tenants who would normally go in that mixed-use type of project like South Glen are already in Aspen Grove, or they're waiting for Aspen Grove Part 2 across the street. So it's hard from a retail standpoint because everyone works off of spacing. You can only do so many stores per mile, and we're in the shadow of Aspen Grove and in the shadow of Wadsworth. And when you're in these secondary, smaller B intersections, it's kind of like it's binary. Either you're there, it's the it place, or you're nowhere. And when you're in the nowhere, then you're really doing a convenience type play and really playing off that 1 mile trade area. And that's where the lack of population really hits you, because we've got really 2/3 of a trade area because of all the lakes.
And will the commercial be developed at the same time as the residential?
Yeah, that's my hope. I mean, we're trying to finish the lease up for the small shop space. Again, we're trying to finalize an agreement with a daycare operator. If this bakery comes together, it would be awesome because we could do a build-a-suit for them. So that's our goal, certainly. And it'll take us a year to build the apartments, and we still haven't finished our approvals yet. So.
Sorry, a couple more questions. You said it's 50% one bedroom, 50% two bedroom. What is the rent? What's the range of rent, and what's the square footage?
They run on average from about $1,000 to $1,500 a month.
And the square footage of one bedroom versus two?
I don't remember the each, but the average square footage in the property is about 900 feet. A little bit smaller than Aspen Grove, a little bit smaller than Pinnacle.
Okay. And then I think this question, well, I'll ask the question. I don't know who can answer it. So in the staff report, there was a statement that this is in line with the comp plan and states by providing links, one of the reasons or justifications is that it provides links within Littleton. Can someone show me how this provides links within Littleton? It was on the last page, point number 6.
Well, the links are within the site and to the adjacent properties, and then it links to Jefferson County across the street is the links that it's providing.
That's what we're stating as providing links within Littleton?
Correct.
Okay. And this question is for staff. I'm just trying to reconcile numbers here. So going back to... So Ernie, this table here?
Yes.
Okay. So when you look at the original approved number of residential, 2,394, total acres, 189, that's for the original full plan development?
That's all of them added together, yes.
Okay, which would have been a maximum number of residential dwelling units of 12.6, the original approved?
All of that, yeah, combined.
Okay. So now that we add this additional, these apartment dwellings, what's that average now?
I think it shows on the...
I'm sorry, I might have missed it in the packet.
with the additional units, yeah, something,
What was developed is an average of 3.6, so
right. Yeah, right. Five units per acre. 5 units per acre.
so overall then, we're going to be at an average of 5 units
With the extra 250.
with the extra apartments. That seems low, but I'll take your word for it. Okay. That's all I have.
How long has this property been continuously marketed? Was it just?
Sorry?
How long has the property been continuously marketed? Was it just recently on the market, or has it been on the
No,
market?
it's been
since
continuously
85?
marketed since it was acquired. In fact,
85.
this is the only parcel that the current landowners have been unable to get developed. I might also point out that this one's been through several retail cycles, and so there, you know, the concern that today multifamily is hot and retail isn't. I just want to say that, you know, after several cycles, the landowners are unable to make it into a retail property.
So was there any discussion back in the 2000s when the market was really hot then to rezone that property at that point?
I don't know. I don't have any knowledge of that. Sorry.
Have you made any evaluation of a lower density of single-family attached or single-family detached in that
We have not.
location? Okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Almost there. Gotta see what questions are left. You may have answered this in a roundabout way, but do you know who specifically are going to be marketing the apartments to, what your demographics going to be?
So the demographic of an apartment renter today, in general, is 22 to 35 years old. You have a high number of singles, and I mean, it's not that we market it to them, that's just sort of what the mix actually works out to be. And as you get closer to light rail type properties, you get more singles and actually more females than you would as you get kind of out away from those. We're not a pure suburban place, so this isn't at the family location. And if it were, we'd be doing a lot of 2s and 3s to reflect that. But we think that the group that we have would look a lot like that.
Okay. Kind of what Kurt had asked, how did you arrive at apartment homes? Was that just the retail's not going to work, let's do apartments? Or was there some study that went into apartments versus patio homes versus
We don't do
homes?
single family, and so that we've looked at it
So
from
you do
from
apartments.
our viewpoint. Yes.
Okay. And then I just want to make a comment that Columbine Valley has recently approved new units as well, and they also feed into the same exact schools that this unit would be feeding into. So I do think it's a valid concern for people. Do we have enough room to service the needs of these kids? And let's see. I think we covered it all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, one more. Will you guys manage the property, and for how long?
Our right now we're using Riverstone which is a national management company. They across the United States manage about 175,000 units. They have their mid United States office is based in Chicago, and Denver, based here in Denver, and so we have great access to them, and I think they do a really good job.
How do you plan on hanging on to the apartments for X number of years and then selling them, or how do you guys normally operate?
We really have to kind of evaluate that depending upon where we are at the time the units are developed. This could be a hold, it could be a sell. We do both.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
LaDonna, do you have any questions?
As far as the timing of when they would be occupied? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Where our saturation point is for this point in time.
Yeah. Well, I think we don't stand alone here in Littleton. We're part of a region, and I think we're seeing kind of an unprecedented demand for this type of housing. The applicant certainly knows that. They're requesting a project that they think they can lease up pretty quickly. So I don't know that there's a gap there. Is the concern perhaps we're overzoning it and it won't be built? I mean, yeah, and I think to a certain degree, I think the market is saying at this point, no. Now, there could be, Commissioner Board Member Moore mentioned Columbine, and there was a patio home project approved in that project on kind of a busy road. I think it's Bowles. That's certainly a demand we hear about quite a bit. On this site, the difficulty is, do you put that on the corner of two arterials where it's an ownership type project? And certainly your student generation goes up considerably when you go to a single family. So if those are some concerns, I don't know, going single family really solves the impact on the schools. We have contracted for a housing study, and the presentation is actually geared to the City Council, I believe, on August 13th, I believe, for a study session. So it is something being looked at in a little bit more detail.
Thank you. At this point, I'd like to close the public hearing. Okay. Well, if there's a motion, I'd like to hear it, or we can have discussion.
Motion to move that the Planning Board Resolution Number 13-06 be approved for purpose of opening up a discussion.
Second.
Board Member Elrod moved for approval of the resolution. Board Member Rudnicki seconded. Discussion. I think this time we'll go right to left.
I just had a comment. I think the property's been zoned commercial for quite some time, obviously sitting vacant, not the highest and best use for that location. That commercial would have a high impact on that area as well, and no matter how many of us would like to see additional retail in the city, we can't make retailers take down space and open shops in the city. So those some concerns that I have about that. I would strongly encourage us to put the light in at Wolf if there's a possibility to do that, have that done, and then encourage bike lanes on Mineral. If we can put some bike lanes in along Mineral, that would be a preference on my part.
I echo some of the same sentiments. While I agree, I think the evidence has been presented that commercial or a higher level of commercial than what's at least being proposed is just not viable. One of my, I have the same concerns that, well, apartments or just higher density is going to exacerbate a problem that already exists from a traffic perspective. And while 6% seems low, in an area where it's already an issue, I think it becomes a much bigger issue. So I also agree that traffic light would be necessary. And it wasn't shown to me how really this connectivity exists. So with this higher density, we've been talking a lot in the city about where does the higher density need to be so that it does give broader access and connectivity to the city, and I'm just not seeing that here.
I agree with all those comments. The property's been there for 30 years. It's been through several cycles. The densities that exist have been there for almost 14 years through a couple cycles, and still nothing has occurred. The light rail addition is new since the property was originally zoned for PUD. That's one reason why I would like to see the city put in bike lanes and improve the access from the west side of the Platte to the east side of the Platte so that people can ride their bikes and walk to Aspen Grove and Light Rail Station. I know there's a quarter-mile walking, it's called a walking shed, I think, from a light rail station, but I think that also extends anywhere you can get to a light rail station within minutes is where you want people to be. And so that's why I see this as part of that changing in condition. I'm a little confused that the connectivity within the development that needs to be worked out with the Pinnacle, and I know that the connection to the Platte through the, I think it's the Overlook, it's outside of the responsibility of the developer. And if that's a city issue, maybe we can work with that, figure out how to keep people from cutting through other people's property. So that's all I have.
I'm confused by this site for sort of two sides of the coin. I'm confused by the apartments on one side that cast the die in a particular direction of higher density versus higher end single family homes on the other side of the street, which portrays a whole different neighborhood. All in all, I'm not usually a fan of apartments, and I don't know that I'm a fan of these apartments, to be honest with you. Much more of a single family home. I think it would be in the city's best interest to make sure we get an answer from the schools. And I think Carrie's dead on, specifically on that side. As a planning board, I think we're at a disadvantage in this because there is no mineral plan study. There is no Platte Canyon corridor study. There is no Region 6 study or whatever this is. In all the dialogue that we've had, we've focused on Broadway, Bellevue, mineral on the east side of Santa Fe and Santa Fe. So there hasn't been a lot of guidance other than the comp plan here. To that end, I do believe that this property is aligned with the comp plan. It is attractive. It is well designed. I would like to see some letters in the contract that ensure that it is attractive and well designed. But then I flip back all the way to the other side, and I'm sorry to be a wishy-washy on this, but a blank piece of dirt looks better in 30 years than an old rundown apartment building looks in 30 years. And so I don't know that I necessarily want more. My office is near Aurora, and there's no shortage of very well-intended buildings that 30 years ago looked very good that I don't think are standing the test of time as well as they should. I don't think the zoning was right for that parcel. I don't think whoever did that 35 years ago really hit the mark is probably the easiest thing to say there. And the developing world, I think I'm pleased to hear from Glenn here that there is a housing inventory study, because it would be nice to add some good facts to the dialogue, because I think we're at the mercy of whoever brings the latest statistic on, and until we get our own statistic, that's going to be a pretty hard thing to say. But the developing world moves much faster than the public process is, and that's a good thing in its own right. The retail side doesn't bother me so much on this parcel. Primarily, Ensor is going to take care of that. There's Ensor, what did you call it? Part 2. Aspen Grove Part 2 is going to take care of no shortage of retail, no shortage of stores for that. So I don't think that we necessarily need to lean more towards a mixed use here. This is a mix of uses. There was a letter that was written here that did a nice job of describing those things. So I don't think we have to stick to the standard of there has to be the retail on the first floor and the development on the second floor for this area, because there's going to be this massive mall, or some version of that. Over that. I think the restaurants and the daycare could do some sheltering from the neighborhoods as well. So that's probably enough of a ramble for today. I'll turn that on to you.
So my turn to ramble?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Many moons ago, Littleton drew a line in the sand saying we are not going to allow retail space to be rezoned into residential space. That was hard and fast rule until Alta Aspen, followed by Marathon, where Littleton finally realized that some of their parcels designed for designated as retail were pie-in-the-sky concepts. Just our desire for retail is fine. It doesn't drive the market. The market drives the market. And I feel that the applicant has made a strong case, and that the market is beat feet away from this development. It's not an appropriate place for 195,000 square foot retail commercial space. I always want to feel that if we were reversed and this parcel was zoned for apartments and the applicant was asking for rezoning to commercial and retail, number of people in this room would increase dramatically. And God forbid if Walmart wanted to come into this place, we'd need 3 of these spaces to fill the overflow crowd. I also think that quite a few of the speakers, maybe 3 with the exception of 3, kind of ignored or glossed over the elephant in the room, and that is the elephant in the space. 195,000 square foot shopping center retail space here, inappropriate, not needed. The market has spoken since 1985. Noise, traffic, light glare, the sea of parking will all be mitigated by residential versus commercial. Also, Rudnicki's axiom is never be the last undeveloped property in any neighborhood, because the neighborhood will demand a park, even though it's private property. Last point is, maybe the warrants say one thing, but to borrow an expression from Star Trek, the traffic light, make it so. Put it in, make it so. Even if the warrants aren't exactly what we need, the light needs to go in. I would like to offer an amendment that is an official amendment that the Planning Board strongly recommends that the traffic light be installed on West Mineral and, I'm sorry, what's the street to the north? Wolf Street.
No matter what. Second.
We have an amendment from Board Member Rudnicki and seconded by Board Member Graham. Discussion on the amendment?
I do. So I think I support that. The question that I would have is, who's paying for that? Would that be on the burden of the developer, or would that become then a burden on the city?
By the developer.
Who's already mentioned that he's willing and able to pay for it. Very willing. It'll help his retail.
So how strong is an amendment that recommends that they do it versus they shall do it? But we can't force it because there's not, the Public Works hasn't said.
Correct.
Yes, I said strongly recommend.
Is that an appropriate?
That would be the appropriate language.
Okay.
That would be appropriate.
Any other discussion on the amendment?
Not from this board.
Place your vote.
Are we voting on the amendment?
What?
Voting on the,
This is just the amendment, right?
Just the amendment. Oh, this is just the amendment.
Okay.
Amendment passes. We strongly recommend it. Okay, David.
I'd have to agree with most of the other comments on this property, that especially regarding having a large retail center on this site. I can just see another Broadstone where we have, hundreds of people in here, or worse, where, if they're, a Walmart or Home Depot or some other large retail tenant and the ancillary other tenants with a large parking lot in front and a much larger impact on traffic, it just doesn't work for this site, it seems to me. And I may be looking at this wrong, but I think I read there's about 26,000 there's 26,000 cars a day going by this property on Mineral, and 250 units, even if each had 2 cars, would be about 1,000 extra cars a day. Or maybe I'm looking at that wrong, but it seems to me that would be much less impact than having a large retail center here, even if it did work. And I guess that's all I have.
can I actually speak now?
Sure.
Formed my thoughts. I still go back to that we as a city still have an infrastructure problem. We still have a traffic problem. I think the light will help for the safety of the residents. It's going to create more congestion for the people traveling on Mineral. The schools, Wilder's at max capacity, Heritage, I'm not sure about Goddard. We may have to look at realigning the school district if we're going to be building these multifamily, large structures. And, having a hard time that apartment's my only choice, that it's one or the other. So I wish there were some other options thrown in there that we could meet in the middle more, or, as far as the citizens are concerned. So.
Any other discussion?
More just responding to Carrie, I think it's essential that we know the impact on the schools. Wilder is full. Wilder is an excellent school, and I grabbed my water bottle not on purpose this morning. It was between that and House of Bounce, so you got Wilder. I think it's a very serious subject because they're already doing opt-ins on a regular basis, which is flooding the folks of us who already joined in there. While the statistics may state that we're going to get single females hanging out there, if people know that there's a rental option, that if I can go sign my kid up, rent for 6 months, get my kid into Wilder, and then I'm locked in for a while, that's going to create a huge problem in the school district, and one that I'm not comfortable with at all. Technically, and just so it's said for the record, LPS and the City of Littleton are 2 totally different things. So
while our role as planning people have to take into account what will have the impact of the schools, the school board at the end of the day is going to have to make that decision on what they're going to do, and unless you'd like to run for the school board.
And I'm worried, did we actually get an answer from the school board, or is no answer an answer? I don't.
I'll give them a call tomorrow, but my referral list says that they were sent a letter, and I don't have anything back, so.
I mean, they're on vacation, maybe, I don't know.
In a case like this, I think it's too important to let no answer be acceptable.
I have a question for Board Member Graham. Does Wilder go outside the district to recruit, like a lot of schools do, a lot of Littleton schools do, in order to fill the schools?
I can't give any official answer on that. I do know that there is a large opt-in population that attends the school. I don't know the statistics of what that is.
Well, I know that the incoming third grade, they had to bring in new cubbies. There wasn't enough room, and I believe it's like 98.9% of those kids are in district.
Well, as they say about downtown parking, it's nice to have a parking problem. That means our downtown is vibrant.
In a different case, it's not nice to have 30 kids in a classroom because our education is crowded.
Right.
So I think it's relevant to this dialogue
It
that
is.
we have.
It is.
And then I know that we've voted on an amendment regarding traffic, but I don't want to be a solution in search of a problem. We just agreed to strongly recommend in no uncertain terms that we would like a street light, but it seems that there should be a traffic study, that there should be a true plan put up in that area, not just simply we think there should be a light, so there should be a light. I think there should be speed bumps all over the city of Littleton. That doesn't necessarily make it true. So I would, the board has voted the way the board has voted, but I would think that it's in our plan just to say be a little broader about solve the mineral problem, don't solve the traffic light problem as we approach those two things. So just as comments.
Well, the applicant has a traffic study for this project, which evaluates traffic impacts based upon this project. And the issue of a traffic light is questionable, and it's up to the Public Works Department to make the final decision. And but hopefully they'll get the word that if it is warranted, then it's highly suggested that they do it.
I would like to know who would be in charge of then, what do you call it, coordinating the lights so that timing them. Would that be done once this light went in to be timed with the one down at the Polo Club?
Yeah, that's our traffic engineering department's part of Public Works, so they're the ones who do that. Yeah.
One more point that I want to make, some dry statistics, but they're quite important to me in making my decision. One is the open space is increasing from 20% to 25%. The 20 units per acre is a refreshing change from the density that we've been looking at lately in the last 2 months. Also, the traffic count goes down from the use by right commercial space by 52%. That to me was extremely important.
I just want to comment on the schools. It seems to be an issue that's sensitive or important to a lot of people, including myself. My kids went through the Littleton Public Schools. I live in Southbridge, and our designated school district is Goddard for elementary. Not elementary, junior, middle school. I call it junior high. So the Littleton Public Schools has a system somehow, some way of allocating students to schools. And I by no means wanted to be flippant about kids can be bused, but I do want to suggest that Littleton Public Schools is a very high-quality school, and that's why we moved here. And Littleton Public School District has to decide and figure out how to allocate students to their school system. And I don't think it's a given that everyone in this area automatically goes to Wilder. So I think we really need to talk to the school district or or even get some guidance from them on future projects that start getting evaluated as to maybe we can suggest that they give us a comment, even if it's just their kind of blanket allocation. That'd be nice to have on future projects.
The unknown here is this flood of apartments.
Right.
I believe the 3,000 number that was thrown up there. We're not counting Columbine Valley. We're not counting Englewood. We're not counting Sheridan. We're not counting, are we going to wind up with 16 new apartment dwellings that all look very 2013 that we're going to have to stare at for the next 20 years?
Okay, is there any other discussion on the motion with the amendment? Cast your vote. Motion with the amendment passes. Thank you for attending. Thank you, applicant, for your presentation. Why don't you leave that up? I didn't leave it up long enough.
Didn't leave it on long enough. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, do we have other business we got to do?
Can you?
Graham and Bolt, put that back line.
I claim no responsibility.
I know you do.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, I'm going to leave it up for 30 seconds. Okay, the next business is comments and reports from staff, if we have any.
I do not have anything.
Okay.
Do you have anything? Shut up.
Oh, sure.
A motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned.
Against it again.
Got the antis, all right. Yeah, they're just against everything.
This is leftover.